Could I ask a question regarding the timeline for a specific coding project? How is it typically you guys the lead time and also some kind of specific coding that was defined by the customer? Give us some kind of general guideline on this kind of timeline also.
For a coding, for a specific coding or a personalized coding?
Yeah, for the coding on medical devices.
Yeah, I mean, well, our samples process is pretty easy. We're very, love to partner with new opportunities and yourself, and very easy to work with. But generally, our samples process takes typically from 3 to 5 weeks, depending on, just the details and logistics of what it needs to be coded, what type of substrate, what type of method. But pretty straightforward process. And then after that, you test yourself after you get our test readings, and you decide to move forward or not. And then we can go into validation in a larger run for your test methods.
So the coding process is pretty straightforward. It would just be getting your product to the market. I think also to, most of our coatings are already FDA approved on devices. So our coatings are not considered FDA approved, but they are approved on devices that have been approved for the market. So we're FDA registered. And so, the coatings process, like Matt said, is pretty straightforward. It just depends on your device and whether you have the device in-house and what you can send to us, and then we send it back to you. But the actual process of getting your device to market, if that's something that you're considering as well on top of what you're asking us about coding, depends on, your device and FDA approval.
Thank you.
Okay, so Kalisa says, which coding test, dye test, friction test, etc., provides the best results in determining the performance of the coating? How do you guys decide the most appropriate test to recommend?
Okay, Kalisa, thank you for the question. If I can answer that, as Matt covered, right, the two tests are slightly different in what they provide. The dye test is what we consider more of a qualitative test that shows the amount of coating and sometimes also the depth of the coating or thickness of the coating. So it's a visual qualitative test, whereas the friction test is a quantitative test, which, as Matt showed, we measure the change in coefficient of friction, and it provides a quantitative force reduction data. So again, we do both of these tests almost on what we coat on the devices. Again, so we do both of them, and I want to make sure that you are clear that they are two different ways of looking at the performance of coating. So I would say both are good. Definitely the friction test is really critical to have a quantitative data, but the dye test also confirms the result. Especially the difference, maybe to elaborate a little bit, is of course the friction test you're doing on a specific area of the coated device. The dye test, if you do it across a larger area, there could be variations in the coating depending on the method. So it will show a qualitative reading of, is the coating uniform across the device? Is it in good amount? So it provides some additional data than just the friction test does. So I would say both are important to do from their own benefits.
And it also gives us an idea of the device too, because sometimes the devices have imperfections or they can have, so it's not just our coating. I don't know if you want to say that or not.
May I ask, how is the coating thickness test you guys conduct? Because it's quite difficult, right?
Yeah, exactly. Very good question. Especially when you're dealing with micron level thickness. So it is a very difficult method. And so, yeah, we have to use, again, we have some pin gauges that we can get an approximate idea of the thickness depending on the coating, again, depending on device or substrate. So we have some gauges that we can use to come up with an approximation. We can also, if it is required, requires a more customized microscopical examination. So that would be something more intensive that we can do as well.
Thank you.
And then also, if you guys have any questions about, the testing and all that stuff, we can also offer you some off Teams meeting consultations with our industrial and medical reps. So if there's something else that you guys are interested in that wasn't answered today, we would like to ask you to reach out to them, or they can reach out to you. So what I'll do is, if you would like for them to reach out to you and talk to you a little bit more in private about your specific product or your specific needs, will you just respond? You can respond back to the email that I sent out today, just letting me know, and then I can pass you on to the correct person. But then otherwise, we would love for you guys to be a part of our next one, which is about all of our testing and our services and our contract manufacturing, and not just ours, but just in general about polymer coating custom services. So it will be, it will be educational as well as informative about Hydromer as well. Okay, and if anybody else doesn't have any pertinent questions for now, we will go ahead and end the session. And we just want to say thank you to everybody who joined us and who stuck around, and we really appreciate your time and your interest. So we will get in touch with you if you guys respond back to the emails. Otherwise, we appreciate your time, and we look forward to the next time we do this with you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.